So the last big topic I want to talk about is censorship. And as Panda writes in her 2024 article, there has always been a looming threat over fandom, and especially over queer and/or erotic fanworks. And that's that they will be censored by some higher power. This could be a large-scale purge of an entire platform, like what happened to LiveJournal as a result of Russian ownership and censorship of queer works. There's also the infamous porn ban on Tumblr in 2018, which significantly reduced the erotic fanworks able to be shared on the site, even now. And so, keeping this looming threat in mind, it is bizarre to me just how much moral policing goes on within fandom now. And moral policing just refers to people who try to enforce a particular set of social standards on other people according to their own sense of morality. And so, some members of the community who engage in this moral policing advocate for the removal of fanworks that they find obscene, because they do not want these subjects to be romanticized. And this could include anything from erotica of underage characters, which is more understandable, but to the depiction of unhealthy relationship dynamics, which I think is ridiculous. I've noticed that a lot of younger people are the ones doing these, moral policing, while it is the quote-unquote fandom elders, maybe millennials, older Gen Z, who still abide by don't like, don't read. And I believe that this is because younger people younger than me, and I'm almost 22, are the ones growing up in this increasingly censored internet. They grew up seeing words like rape and sexual assault being censored because of TikTok. And so they cannot handle darker, more controversial themes being explored in fanfiction. Do you have to enjoy these themes or taboos? No, I think some things are definitely taboo for a reason, like incest. But do I think it should be censored? No, because I believe that opens up the door for other types of sexuality to be censored. It would set a precedent, and who is to say that they wouldn't go after queer fanworks next? After all, in real life, conservatives will often use wanting to protect the kids as a gateway to attack and silence the LGBTQ+ community. I'm just very wary of censorship, and I don't want to see this repeated in this fandom space. I think that, in a way, being anti-censorship is being anti-capitalist. Queer sexuality in general is constructed as being very anti-capitalist, and this is because it's often not reproductive. And if your sex does not result in children who will grow up and become the next generation of laborers for them to exploit, then what's the point? This makes queer sexuality a threat that they will try to censor at all costs. And so then, going back to censorship, because this is all related, it's resisting the urge to make your fanworks more non-controversial and safe to appease brands. If a fanfiction website is going to make money via ads, they're going to need some content guidelines or censorship for the works being hosted on there, because brands don't want to be associated with these taboo subject matters. AO3, on the other hand, rejects capitalism because there is no censorship. This is a non-profit archive run by fans, for fans, using fan donations, that refuses to let companies have any sway over what art people can share. And I think that that's a much more positive way of going about things. There's a quote from Gonclave's 2021 that says, "Despite early optimism that the internet could be a new public sphere, it soon became apparent that online spaces often devolved into wastelands of toxicity unless content was moderated." And in this case, I kind of disagree. I don't actually think this is always true for fandom spaces. Of course, fandoms will always have problems because there are bigots everywhere. And in my experience, the larger that a fandom becomes, the more bad apples spewing toxicity that you will find. But I don't think the problem is a lack of moderation in fandom necessarily. Because to me, moderation implies some kind of top-down governing by the websites that the fandom spaces are being hosted on. I think that toxicity is actually being managed here by the community. There are norms that people follow. For example, there is an expectation that you will tag the taboo subjects in your fanfiction so that people know what they're going into, or they can filter it out if they don't want to see it. Or, maybe if you notice a very problematic trend in the community, you will call that out and hold other users accountable for it. Like, these are just ways that the fandom community at large manages to not implode in on itself like some other parts of the internet.